Welcome everyone to the second leg of Electronic Art on the Waterways. This will be a demonstration of a project called Manifest AR, and I'm going to introduce the members involved in this project. My name is Meredith Hoy. I'm Assistant Professor of Contemporary Art at University of Massachusetts, Boston. My own research is in the intersection of contemporary art and digital media, so this project is near and dear to my heart. The first person I'd like to introduce is Mark Skwarek, who is a new media artist working to bridge the gap between virtual reality and the real world by using augmented reality and multi-user online environments to bring a virtual context into physical space. He explores this intersection in both his private art practice as well as in academic research projects. Mark primarily works with 3D graphics and video game technology to create new media works of art. Mark's current body of work gives context to society's present condition in the United States by drawing from related social and political issues in real time. Mark has been written about in the New York Times, Art in America, Wired, and Read Write Web, among others. Mark has shown at IZEA, Cyber Arts, the Sunshine International Art Museum in Beijing, and the Krannert Art Museum at the University of Illinois. Mark is an artist in residence and adjunct faculty at NYU Polytech University, and an adjunct faculty at the New York City College of Technology's Architecture Department. Next is Will Pappenheimer, who is an artist and professor at Pace University, New York. He has exhibited nationally and internationally at Fringe exhibitions in Los Angeles, the ICA and Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, ExitArt, Florence Lynch, Postmasters, Vertex List, and Pocket Utopia galleries in New York, San Jose Museum of Art at IZEA 0601, Kunstraum Valketurm in Zurich, the Golden Thread Gallery, Belfast, Ireland for IZEA 09, File 2005 at the Ceci Art Gallery, Sao Paulo, and Xi'an Academy of Art Gallery in China in conjunction with the Digital Art Weeks 2010. His grants include an NEA Artist Fellowship, Turbulence.org and Rhizome.org at the New Museum Commissions, and a large-scale public network sculpture for the city of Tampa. His work has been reviewed in the New York Times for Art Basel, Miami 2003, Art in America, New York Arts International, Art US, the Boston Globe, and many others. The artist's works are discussed in a chapter of Gregory Ulmer's theoretical book, Electronic Monuments, and in Christian Paul's recent historical edition of Digital Art. He has presented his work recently at the New Museum, New York, the ITP Graduate Program, New York University, the College Art Association, New York, and ETH Computer Systems Institute at Zurich, Switzerland. Next is John Craig Freeman, who is hopefully here somewhere, okay, who is a public artist with over 20 years of experience using emergent technologies to produce large-scale public work at sites where the forces of globalization are impacting the lives of individuals in local communities. His work seeks to expand the notion of public by exploring how digital networked technology is transforming our sense of place. He has produced work and exhibited around the world, including in Xi'an, Belfast, Los Angeles, Beijing, Zurich, New York City, Taipei, Sao Paulo, Warsaw, Kaliningrad, Miami, etc., etc. His writing has been published in Rhizome, Leonardo, the Journal of Visual Culture and Exposure. Freeman writes, "If Andy Warhol set out to create a distinctly American art form in the 20th century, I identify with those who seek to create a distinctly global art form in the 21st. Next we have Tomiko Thiel, who is an American media artist based in Munich. She is developing the dramatic and poetic capabilities of various forms of virtual and augmented reality as a medium for exploring social and cultural issues, often focusing on site-specific works. She shows internationally at venues such as the Fondazione Querini Stampaglia in Venice, the Metropolitan Museum of Photography in Tokyo, the ZKM in Karlsruhe, the International Center for Photography in New York, and many others. Her work has been supported by many grants, and she is a co-founder of the Manifest AR Cyber Artists Group and is spearheading the Manifest AR intervention at the 2011 Venice Biennale. Last but not least, we have John Cleater, who is a founding member of internationally acclaimed performance group, the Builders Association, creating designs for many of their cross-media productions. He has worked as project architect with Asymptote for clients including the New York Stock Exchange, Documenta 11, BMW headquarters, the Guggenheim Virtual Museum, and Carlos Mil. With Hani Rashid at the Columbia University School of Architecture, he oversaw the creation of 3 large-scale interactive installations in the American Pavilion at the Venice Biennale 2000. Other recent work includes jury selection for the Highline competition in Manhattan, a proposal for a wireless network overlay for Queens Plaza, and the installation Emergency Exit at Artist Space in New York as part of the critically acclaimed exhibition Digital Mapping in Architecture. Let's see. This goes on for a while, so I'm just going to end there and turn the project over to Craig, I believe.
I'll have a word or two, and then I'm going to pass the mic to some of the artists. So we're 5 of the artists that are involved in this particular manifestation of Manifest AR at the ICA. There's about a dozen artists total, with at least 14 different projects that you'll be able to see here later this afternoon once we kind of have a chance to talk a little bit about each individual project. There's some postcards that are floating around the group. I think I might have given them all away, but on the back of that are instructions that'll help you access the work when we get a chance to walk around a little later and see the individual projects. You read that QR code, it'll bring you to a list of all of the individual projects. All of us here, all the artists here will help you if you need technical assistance when we come to it. I'm going to pass the mic for a moment over to some of the artists to talk about individual projects, and I'll fill in.
I got introduced to this stuff fairly recently by Will and Mark, and I'm still messing around. I have a project called Sky Pavilions, hovering over the building, and I'm happy to be here and be a part of this new organization, Manifest AR.
I'm sorry, I failed to mention that this Manifest AR at ICA is a part of the larger Boston Cyber Arts Festival 2011. George is here representing cyber arts, and it's tied to many other events, including an opening for one of the...
Our Cyber Art Central our Cyber Art Central opening is at 5 o'clock at 290 Congress Street. And if we invite you all to come and see it, it's 2 exhibitions. One, Fluid Perimeters, which is all screen-based work, and the other, Cyber Parts, which is individual pieces by artists who are showing at other venues of the Cyber Arts Festival. And so from 5 to 8, we'll have an opening there. And if you came on the boat, you can just walk 1 more block to South Station and be right back at Columbia Point.
And George has done a fantastic job with the entire festival and was just absolutely instrumental in getting Manifest AR here to the ICA. Sorry, this will happen.
Great. Try and tell you just a few bits about my project here, which is called Bufo Colonies. And what it is it's a colony of programmed, psycho-programmed toads, which you can see through your iPhone. And they're kind of viral, so they multiply essentially by themselves. This was a project developed by both John Craig Freeman and I, and you'll see a lot of collaboration between us, between projects, to create these this virtual drug, which also these toads, if you get close to them and you touch them, they'll cause you to go into an interesting psychological state. And so when you wander around the museum, if you go to the Bufo layer, you will see lots of toads, and if you stand close to them for a while, you'll see that your iPhone switches to another level, and it'll ask you to launch a new level. And at that point, if you want the strongest dose, you should lick your iPhone like this, okay? And that'll launch the next layer. And then at that point, you may see a lot of visual effects and hallucinations, which will eventually gradually fade as you go back to the toad layer. The toads, by the way, are called 33.5 RPM sunset toads because they very much like to adapt to whatever art exhibits they're part of. And there are 2 concurrent shows going on here. One of them is The Record, and that's about 33.5 RPM records. And the other is Catherine Opie, who's very well known for her Sunset series. So you will see the toads rotate at a 33.5 RPM, and then they turn the color of the sunset of Catherine Opie. And hopefully they don't get noticed.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, Will. So very, very quickly, my name is Mark Skwarek. I'm a new media artist working with augmented reality, and I was one of the co-founders of Manifest AR. I wanted to give a big thanks to George Fifield. Thank you very, very much for making this happen. We owe him a great debt. And also to John Craig Fearman, who did a lot of work to make this show happen. I worked with Craig and Will to kind of organize this. And Craig did a lot of the work. So we're very thankful. Thank you very much. I'd like to tell you a little bit about the pieces that I'm showing today. So I've got two pieces going on here, both associated with cyber arts. One of the pieces that's mainly associated with the ICA, is the Parade to Hope. I've created a parade which will basically find the center of hope in a location that I tell it to. We can basically use statistics that are being constantly drawn and figure out where hope is the greatest. When hope seems to be lost right now, we're going to go and search it out and find where it is. So what will happen is it'll just keep going and going and going indefinitely, and if it doesn't find hope, or hope may change before it actually gets to its destination. But before we were going to do that, we thought we'd drive it up to the ICA. So actually the Parade to Hope is rapidly approaching the ICA right now as we speak. It's across the river, and it's coming in this direction very quickly. If you load the Parade to Hope app, which should be on your iPhone list, what we're going to attempt to do is jump the parade over the ICA. We've tried it twice, and it didn't work out either time. So we're going to try, though. We're going to try. Yeah. Hope swings eternal. And then we have another piece called the Occupation Forces, which is like an alien invasion. It's largely centered over at the Greenway Park. It's also in downtown and around the Children's Museum as well. So if you'll see a few QR codes throughout the Greenway Park. If you take your phone out and you bring up your QR reader, you'll be able to launch the app. If you don't have the app, it should allow you to download it if your phone supports it.
It's the alien detection application.
Yes.
You can see them. They're everywhere.
As we were working on the Parade of Hope, we actually stumbled upon this by accident, that these aliens were actually starting to have some sort of infestation over there. And the piece is going to change over a month's time, so we're not exactly sure what they're doing, but it looks like they're excavating different areas of the park. So let's find out what happens in about a month's time. So, is this Tamiko Thiel?
Yeah, my name's Tamiko Thiel, and I've been working with 3D, a lot of site-specific virtual reality for about 15 years. And then last fall, Mark got me involved in the augmented reality area with the first We Are in MoMA show, a guerrilla intervention in MoMA, New York. The artwork's still there. It's on permanent display. They can't do anything about it. So if you happen to be down there, you can check out our websites and find out about that. So what I've got here is two pieces. One's called Jasmine Rain, parenthetical birdcage. And I was looking at the news and all these jasmine revolutions happening in Egypt and in Tunisia and trying to happen in some other places, which didn't quite take off. And animated a rain of jasmine flowers falling that I wanted to put here on the dock, but it's not really a site that has any relevance to the jasmine revolutions. So I added a cage, this golden bird cage, and most of the time you're in it, sometimes you're not in it. But it creates a tension between the openness of this space here on the dock with the water all around and the sort of promise of freedom that the jasmine flowers bring with the confinement of this golden bird cage. Sometimes you're in it, sometimes you're not. Check it out. And the second piece is called the Art Critic Face Matrix Reloaded. And the piece that I put in the atrium of MoMA, New York is called Art Critic Face Matrix. It has a screaming, distorted face going, "You call this art?" And the version that I have here is an animated one which switches from a rather skeptical face to an outraged face. And you can see both pieces actually sort of on the dock, which is the right sort of setting for the Jasmine Rain piece, in the lobby, especially in front of this painting, which is a good place to look at the art critics. It's also easier to look at your display inside rather than outside in the full sun. So I think we'll pass it on to Craig. He'll talk about his own work and lots of other things.
I'm feeling daft this afternoon. I failed to, of course, thank Meredith Hoy and Kat Massey for putting the boat trip together. I wish I could have been there. Greg Cholette's an old friend of mine, and did he do a good lecture? Did I miss it? Yeah, good. So let me just briefly tell you about a few more of the projects that are here by artists that weren't able to be here today. Nathan Schaefer did a project called Archie, where he's kind of quoting from William Gibson's book, Spook Country, where William Gibson describes the experience of the virtual world becoming visible in the physical world. And the first manifestation of that, I believe, is like a giant squid that appears above corporate office buildings. And so if you look carefully, you might see a giant squid floating over the ICA. Also, Patrick Lichty, who's not with us today, he's an artist, a Chicago-based artist, has created a project called Return of the Moonanites. You might remember a couple years ago when the artists were arrested for posting LED Moonanites under bridges here in Boston. So he thought he'd bring them back in a safer form as augmented reality. Jeffrey Allen Road is an artist based in upstate New York, has done a project called Mal Wants His Money Back. And if you look at his layer, you will be guided to banks and ATMs near you. If you wave dollar bills in front of your iPhone, they will be converted to Mao dollars so you can pay Mao his money. Also, Sander Veenhoff, who is one of the founders of Manifest AR. He's based out of Copenhagen, couldn't be here today physically, although I think he's here in augmented reality. He has created the smallest artwork ever called the One-Dimensional AR. And this follows up his most recent project about a month ago or so when he did the largest artwork ever, where he encircled the entire planet with large cubes floating in the sky. If you look carefully out on the deck of the ICA here, you might be able to see a single pixel, his one-dimensional AR. Also, New York-based artist Lillian Hung Lei, originally from Beijing, have created a project called Butterfly Lovers, which is based on a traditional Chinese folk tale that's similar to a Romeo and Juliet tale, but talks about alienation and cultures outside of your own, and they relate it to their experience of arriving in New York City at Times Square. Much of the work that's here today, since this is indeed a global art form, is actually referencing work that exists in other parts of the globe. And in this case, the original version of the Butterfly Lovers takes place in the Ruby Red Steps in Times Square. So if you're in Times Square, you can see them there as well. Chris Manzioni is a New York-based or Philadelphia-based artist? New York-based artist who has done something called core samples, where he's taken core samples around the ICA and elevated them to the point where you can see the stratification beneath. Mark Skoark and I started a project a number of months ago called the Border Memorial. It's an attempt to take the database from all of the deaths that have been recorded in the desert Southwest, north of the border, from migrants who have lost their lives trying to cross the border. And we've now taken that database and augmented each of those GPS data points in Arizona. And you can see examples of that work here today as well. And finally, there's the group Four Gentlemen who have erected the replicas of the original Goddess of Democracy in Tiananmen Square and Tank Man, where those events originally took place in 1989 during the student uprising in Beijing and Tiananmen Square. And we have replicas of the Goddess of Democracy, and Tank Man should be coming just down the street here.
got
So
a canyon.
he's looking
You have
at
to look at it from the edge.
the device is filming the real world, putting on AR. You're filming it.